Hello to all you beautiful people out there, Regnilla over here, bringing you, finally, a multiplayer episode of Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. I am using the program called, I think it's pronounced called Amultios, and it's been some time in the making since I've been able to bring an actual multiplayer episode for once, and it's really not that hard to set up. So I will send in a link in the description of this video with the website as well as the Facebook group for the website if you want to check that out. For today's episode, we are facing off against a Lavasioth, a Terra Shogun Cenotar, and a Rathalos. Now, since this is G rank, everything's going to hit really hard, but the one monster I'm worried about for this particular quest is not the Lavasioth, but it is the Terra Shogun Cenotar, and we'll get into the reason why in a bit here. But I also want to talk a little bit about multiplayer in general, because multiplayer, it's not something that I've covered on, at least for Freedom Unite. I know I've done other Monster Hunter series where I have done multiplayer, but I never really discussed the implications of multiplayer. So if for whatever reason you haven't done multiplayer of Monster Hunter, I worry about you, because multiplayer, it can be a lot of fun. It can also be one of the most frustrating things on the planet, because you are heavily dependent on your teammates, and that should really go without saying. But the whole 3 knockouts and you fail the quest extends to the entire party, so you have to look after your team as much as you're looking after yourself. And sometimes, depending on your teammate, that's not as easy as it sounds, because there's always one guy that's a little too reckless. He's not thinking, and he just goes in and he starts, messing with the monster and himself at the same time. And by extension, he screws with the team as a whole. So whenever you're in a group, you got to look after your teammates as well as yourself. And one of the things that you can do in order to do this is bring something called life powders. It is one of those items that I think it heals as much as a mega potion, and it extends to all your teammates. So you can only carry 3 of these, but it is an incredibly helpful item, and I cannot recommend it enough for multiplayer shenanigans. But another thing, actually going back to the last episode of Monster Hunter that we talked about, the wide area skill, when I was listing off the gunner armor for both the pink Rathian as well as the red Kizu. Perfect for a quest like this. It's you really want to have your teammates nice and healthy, otherwise just bad things happen, and the Lavasioth here is just giving us both a ton of grief. And I was also kind of distracted too. I was multitasking as I was recording this, so my game was not up to par. But of the 3 monsters, I believe the Lavasioth hits the hardest. But in terms of the most difficult, or the one that you have to look out for, definitely the Terra Shogun Cenotar. Because just like a regular Cenotar, they are fast, they are strong, they do a lot of chip damage, and you can lose a ton of health really quickly. And the last monster it's just a Rathalos. If you can't handle a Rathalos even by yourself at this point in G rank, you probably have some more problems rather than monster problems. I mean, of course, monsters are monsters and there are always problems, but there's some that at this point you should really handle. If you go into G rank, you're expected to be able to handle a Rathalos the same way you can handle a Kizu. And the best way to do that is to spam flash bombs and to hit the face. So a lot like a Rathian, only you don't want to spend a whole lot of time trying to find out what sort of attack Rathalos is going to do. Just flash bomb it and then you're done. So here's our Shogun Cenotar, and It's it looks kind of scary. It has and will always have a black Gravios shell on its back. With the regular Shogun Cenotar, it will have either a Gravios shell, an unknown shell, and I believe it's like a giant conch shell. So it has a variation. The Terra does not. But this guy's scary in his own right. I saved the majority of my stuff specifically for this dude. And that's why. Because, oh my god, this poor dude just got yeeted. And that's great. But, you know, especially alone, if you start a quest like this in a group and you find yourself facing against a monster alone, that could be really scary. And so for this guy, I wanted to play very conservatively for my attacks, especially because he goes into rage mode and he's scary. And something else to look after whenever you're in the in a multiplayer hunt is lag and random disconnects. I think this might be a PSP thing specifically, or it could just be, you know, Monster Hunter entirely. But there's a bad habit of just random disconnections here and there, and that could be a real problem if you're trying to get a quest done. But lag is also a pretty big issue. For example, back in Monster Hunter Tri, whenever a hunter went into an area to face a monster, it was believed that they were, quote, hosting the monster, and so whoever was hosting the monster, their internet was basically the gold standard on how that particular encounter would go. And so if you had crappy internet and you were hosting the monster, it would affect everyone. So you want to be kind of mindful about your connection and how it will relate to other players. Now, this is just stuff that was told to me years ago, so I can't speak for sure of the accuracy of it, but from my experience, it seems to be the case. But Shogun Cenotar is almost down and out at this point. It's surprising how quick a quest like this can go if the right circumstances happen. And that's the other benefit of a multiplayer quest, is that, well, if you have the right team, a quest could just blaze by. I've had particular runs where a quest would take twice as long as it should have, or instances where it takes less than a couple minutes. A quest could go by really, really quickly if you have the right team. And in this case, with this particular guy, we can't really pronounce his name. It's like Mulsihat, but this dude was a total Chad in this. So despite the fact that he just got blown up by a giant crab with sword-like claws. And lastly, all this is waiting for the Rathlos to get into prime position for flash bombing, and then we just go to town. If you are a longsword user in a multiplayer quest, then you don't want to primarily go after the head. Leave that to your harder hitters, like this guy, his greatsword, or someone maybe with a lance, or especially if they're using a hammer or a hunting horn, because longswords have a nasty habit of tripping other players. And if you want to be looking out for your teammates, then don't trip them. Or at least, if you do trip them, reposition yourself and try to go after the monster in a different way. A lot of times a longsword user is, they're supposed to prioritize the tail. And in this case, the tail is dangerous, or at least I think it's the tail, because it's just kind of hitting me with chip damage and almost knocks me out. But you really want to go for the tail whenever you can with a longsword in a multiplayer hunt. And let's see, with greatswords are great. Obviously, it's in the frickin' name, but they have a nasty habit of launching people. So if you're a greatsword user and you're doing backswings, or at least in the older Monster Hunter quests, newer ones, they've kind of fixed that issue. sort of. You can still launch people, but it can be made into a benefit rather than a hindrance. But yeah, be mindful of your backswings in the in the earlier Monster Hunter games. But yeah, that was this quest and multiplayer. So I intend to do as many of these as I can possible for the remainder of the series, and hopefully we can hit 100 episodes really soon. I have a backup plan for the missing event quests for later on. I just need to wait for a charger to come in the mail. But that's going to do it for me and this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're interested in any of my other content, be sure to hit on one of those annotations that will be featured at the end of this video, and I will see you again next time. Take care, people.